Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So today's episode comes to you courtesy of Mersheep, who's been supporting this channel as a Brigadier General patron. I truly couldn't do this without the support from amazing patrons like Mersheep. So again, Mersheep, thank you so much. And for this episode, well, I'm going to be taking you through a commander deck tech on what I believe to be an underrated commander with Kami of the Crescent Moon, a fantastically adorable commander that, well, can be taken in some different directions. And the way that you might think it is, it might surprise you. It might surprise you on what it actually does if you're going up against it. Kami the Crescent Moon is a 1/3 legendary creature spirit for blue. At the beginning of each player's draw step, the player draws an additional card. So basically, this commander is Howling Mine, but in the command zone. Everyone gets to draw. I'm just helping everyone out. That's what I'm trying to do. Hey, you know what? You even get to draw before I do because I can get my commander out. Then you're upkeep, then you're upkeep, then you're upkeep. I'm just trying to help out everyone, but seriously, no. I'm also going to draw an absurd amount of cards and win the game in a variety of ways. So, although this might present itself as a group hug commander, and you can definitely build in that direction, this is not a group hug deck, and this commander can pack quite the punch. So, on this episode, of course, I'm going to be taking you through different tactics to show you how this deck works and how we're going to win with it. Of course, this is a very budget-friendly deck, being on this channel. Every single card in it is less than $1, except the commander, which is just barely outside of that at $1.17. Regardless, according to Moxfield, this deck is $26.70 with an estimated cost. And keep in mind that does not include the cost of basic lands, but if you already have those islands, there you go. Or maybe you've got, some of your LGS that you can get, maybe some of your friends can give you some, or you can just buy them in bulk. And of course, keep in mind this also does include the cost of shipping, which might vary depending upon where you live. That being said, again, overall still a very budget-friendly deck. If you are interested in this deck, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. Now, with all that said, let's jump into the tactics. So we're going to be starting things off with tactic number 1, Rock On. And of course, first up, there's Wayfarer's Bauble. Pay 2 tap, sacrifice, go get a basic land and play tap, land ramp for any color. It's a fantastic card. Moving on, Everflowing Chalice, a very flexible and fun mana rock. At 2 mana, we tap for 1, 4 mana, tap for 2. Basically, the later the game goes, the bigger we can have this come into play with, the more charge counters on it and more it can tap for. Next up, we've got Arcane Signet, just a solid mana ramp option. Taps for 1. Fellwar Stone is the exact same thing. Typically, it'll be able to tap for a blue, but if it doesn't, that's probably okay as well. We also have Mind Stone, taps for a colorless, pay 1 tap, sacrifice, draw a card. Walking Atlas, a bit of a different kind of ramp for this stack. Tap, put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Again, we have our commander, which can help us draw cards, and of course, we've got tons of other ways to draw a lot of cards. This can be a great way to say, we've got some extra lands in our hand. Let's get them right onto the battlefield. And yeah, this can really come in handy throughout the game. Moving on, at 3 mana, we've got Coalition Relic. This one can either tap for 1 or we can tap put a charge counter on it to essentially store up mana for next turn to be able to tap for 2. Next up, there's Commander Sphere. Tap for 1, or we can sacrifice it to draw a card. Again, we've got plenty of ways to benefit from card draw, and yeah, this can be another great way to do so. Next up, again at 3 mana, we've got Skyclave Relic. We can kick it, and if we do, we get 2 copies of it. Indestructible artifacts that can tap for 1. So at 3 mana, tapping for 1. 6 mana, essentially tapping for 3. At 3 mana, also got Worn Power Stone. Enters battlefield tap, but can tap for 2, so incredibly efficient, incredibly effective. Then there's Empowered Auto Generator. This one builds throughout the game. Essentially, every single time we tap it, we get charge counters on it, and we add that much mana. So the longer the game goes, the more mana this will give to us. Then there's Hedron Archive, again at 4 mana. Taps for 2, pay 2 tap, sacrifice, draw 2 cards. So again, if you need those cards, you can go for it. Then there's Stone Speaker Crystal. Helps us draw a card as well. Or, I mean, not or. If we do choose to sacrifice it, we're going to be drawing that card as well as exiling Graveyard. So we can get rid of, well, those problematic players' graveyards that, might do the reanimation, might be, self-milling. It's a very flexible card. Then finally, there's Dreamstone Hedron. Taps for 3, pay 3, tap, sacrifice, draw 3. Yeah, we've got a lot of great ramp because we're going to be drawing a ton of cards and having a lot of great options in our hand. The more ramp that we have, the more mana that we have, the more we can actually play our cards and just keep things going. Moving on, we've got some utility mana rocks to talk about in tactic number 2, the flow of things. First up, there's Thought Vessel. This is a very efficient mana rock. Costs 2 taps for 1, but also it says you have no maximum hand size, which is huge for this kind of a commander because, yeah, our commander provides us a lot of card advantage. And again, we've got a lot of other ways to provide card advantage, so we can just have a massive hand. And yeah, the more options, the better. Moving on, Decanter of Endless Water. This one costs 1 more. It does tap for 1 mana of any color, so that's nice. And also, again, no maximum hand size, so that is huge. Finally, we got Midnight Clock. This one doesn't give us a maximum hand size, but it can help us draw a lot of cards. Can tap for a blue just for 3 mana, so not the most efficient mana rock, but still that's okay. What this does do is it gets hour counters on it. Once it gets that 12th hour counter on it, it gets exiled, and we essentially get to shuffle our hand and graveyard into our library, draw 7 to reset things for us. So again, a great way to reset our hand throughout the game. But now let's move on to tactic number 3, Wheel in the Sky, because, yeah, we're also going to be running some wheels like Tellurian Winds. Again, like I mentioned, drawing cards. We've got plenty of ways to benefit from that. We'll get to some of those here in a bit. But the bigger our hand is, the more effective our wheels can be. Tellurian Winds, discard your hand and draw that many cards. Instant speed for 2 mana. This can be absolutely massive. Then there's Whirlpool Rider. There we go. ETBs, shuffle your hand in your library, draw that many cards. So again, basically a fantastic wheel on an ETB. Speaking of which, we've got Flux yet another wheel. This one's a bit of a, I'm going to say, a decision point for our opponents. This one says each player chooses and discards any number of cards and draws that many cards, draw a card. So we can discard our entire hand if we want to. Our opponents may as well. We get an extra card too on top of that, which is nice to replace this. Then there's Induced Amnesia, an enchantment for 3 mana. ETBs, target player exiles the cards in their hand face down, then draws that many cards. Put in a graveyard, those exiled cards goes back in that player's hand. So this can be a way to maybe stop an opponent if we know they've got something in their hand. Or yeah, just actually kind of wheel ourselves as well. A repeatable wheel, though, comes from Forgotten Creation. Say 3/3 a Skull. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may discard all the cards in your hand. If you do, draw that many cards. So get rid of those dead cards in your hand that you might not need, or even if you do, you can probably draw into even better things, or just take advantage again of those draws in different ways. A great repeatable way. Then there's Whirlpool Drake. We got there again. ETBs, basically wheel again, shuffle those cards in your hand in your library, draw that many. On top of that, when this dies, you do the exact same thing. So essentially, this can be a double wheel for us. Then we got Sword Tommy's here. This one's an interesting one. Pay 4, bounce 2 lands back to your owner's hand, discard your hand, then draw that many cards. So this one is a way to say, well, you know what? I'm going to turn my hand as well as some lands in play into card advantage. Yes, you are kind of going down on ramp, right? You are losing some resources. Like I said earlier, though, we've got tons of ways to ramp, so we can make up for that. Or maybe if you got Walking Atlas, you get more lands into play as well. But yeah, a repeatable wheel for us for just 4 mana, that is huge. Next up, there's Game Plan, a great one as well. This one we can convince an opponent potentially to help us out. It's got assists, so another player can help pay for it. Each player shuffles their hand and graveyard in the library, then draws 7 cards, exile it. If an opponent is desperate, let's say they've got no hand or like 1 or 2 cards in their hand, they might be like, yeah, I'll throw in some mana because I really would like you to cast that. So there you go. But now it's time to talk about the Golden Pig of this deck, which is the number 1 card out of our 99. And the Golden Pig for this deck is Thought Reflection, an incredible enchantment that makes so many things in this deck, including our commander, so much better. An enchantment for 7 mana in total for blue. If you draw a card, draw 2 cards instead. Very simple, very effective. Basically, it just doubles up every single one of our card draw. So yeah, basically, again, for a regular card draw, we get 1. Now we get 2. Kami of the Crescent Moon says you also get 1. Now you get 2. So instead of just drawing what our normal 1 would be, we're getting 4 instead in combination with our commander every single turn, and that is massive. Of course, this works so well with any card draw that we have. Even just like Commander Sphere, sacrifice it, draw 2 instead of 1. That is huge. Basically a divination plus a mana rock. And yeah, keep in mind like all those wheels that we just talked about. Hey, discard your hand, draw that many cards. So let's say you had 7 in your hand, you cast Tellurian Winds, now you're drawing 6, right? Now it would be 12. So instead of just kind of netting the same amount of cards that we discarded, we are going up in cards. We are doubling up that card advantage. This card is absolutely massive, and in my opinion, definitely worthy of the title of Golden Pig. Now you might think we're done with card advantage, but we are nowhere near done just yet. So let's go to attack number 5, Big Payday, Opulent Epiphany. X spells like this one can be massive. Again, we talked about all that fantastic, efficient, juicy ramp that we have. This can really help us out. Instant for X and a blue, draw X cards, discard X cards, and you get some spirits based on the number of kinds of cards you discard that way. It's fine. Hey, you know what? The main thing, obviously, is that card draw, card advantage. That's fantastic. Technically, it's more like card selection, where you get rid of dead cards in your hand. And now on top of that, you get some blockers. You get some things to get through. What's not to love? Then we got Read the Runes. Hey, you know what? Maybe you could just use those little tokens that you just made for some sacrifice fodder with this. Again, another X spell, draw X cards. For each card drawn this way, you discard a card to sacrifice a permanent. Sometimes sacrificing cards can be well worth it to keep extra cards in your hand. Or for one more mana, pull for tomorrow. This one has a less of a downside, okay? All you need to do is just discard one singular card. That is huge. Again, instant speed, X speed, draw is incredible. Commander's Insight. Another great one. Target player draws X cards plus draws a card for each card each time you cast Commander from the hands of this game. Again, Kami the Crescent Moon is one that costs just 2 mana. Even if it gets dealt with, you can recast it very easily, very effectively, very cheaply. And the more and more times you cast it, the more effective this becomes. Moving on, Diviner's Portent. Roll a d20, then add the number of cards in your hand, which can be a massive amount. 1 through 14, draw X. If it's 15 plus, scry X, then draw X. So again, if you've got a lot of cards in your hand, you're more likely to hit that, and that can be just huge card selection into card advantage. Next up, even the score, X, blue, blue, blue. It's going to cost that blue, blue, blue less to cast. If an opponent has drawn 4 more cards this turn, you're going to draw X cards. This is a huge card because, hey, if an opponent's trying to take advantage of drawing cards as well, which they don't even have to really draw that many in a turn on top of what you're already giving them, right? They draw their card for the turn, they get the Kami trigger, so they're already at 2. If they draw 2 more, you know what? You can just cast this for just X, essentially, which is massive. Then we've got Gadwick the Wizen. This one is huge as well. ETBs draw X cards. Whenever you cast a blue spell, you tap target non-land permanent opponent controls. That is huge. That is just, you know what? Let's shut things down, okay? We can say, you know what? I need to get through on you with some of my creatures. Cool, I'll shut down, you know, some of your creatures. I'll tap them down. Or if it's your turn, and you know what? Hey, you're probably going to attack me with that big, massive dragon or whatever, right? Cool. Instant speed, cast a blue spell, and let's tap that down so it's not coming my way. You can make deals, you can wheel and deal, and of course, this is a giant X draw spell for you as well. Speaking of which, you might think we're done. We're not. Stroke of Genius, another great one as well. X2 and a blue, target player draws X cards. Universal Surveillance. This one we can have our artifacts help us out as well. Improvise, they can tap for it as well. Draw X cards. This one's only a sorcery speed though, but still very good. Then we have our creatures can help us out as well with this one. Transcendent Message, Convoke, draw X cards. So yeah, again, if we've got those spirits in play or whatnot, or even just our commander, that can help reduce this cost. Finally though, Flow of Knowledge. This one is huge for a mono blue deck. Draw a card for each island you control, then discard 2 cards. The longer the game goes, or, you know, if we have Walking Atlas to get more in play, or Wayfarer's Bauble, etc., hey, the more cards we're going to draw with this again for just 5 mana instant speed. And yet we have even more ways to draw, and so let's move on to tactic number 6, Pay It Forward. Academy Lore Master is a fantastic one, 2/3 Human Wizard for just 2 mana, so kind of like Kami, essentially. Beginning of each player's draw set, the player ready to draw an initial card. If they do, spells they cast this turn cost 2 more to cast. A lot of our cards, again, are at instant speed, so we're going to be playing on our opponent's turn, so this might not affect us very much at all. We can be like, yeah, I'll take that extra card. Why not? Our opponents might get greedy, might take those extra cards though, but it will slow them down quite significantly when they do, so it's a nice decision point for them. Next up, Juicy Apprentice. Basically, once we activate that, we're probably going to be able to flip it. Draw a card if you've got 9 number cards in hand, flip it. Again, we got so many ways to draw, we're probably going to get there. On the other side though, pay 5 mana, tap target player draws X cards or X the number of cards in your hand. That could be an absurd amount. Again, we can have so many cards in our hand, especially if we've got one of those no maximum hand size cards. This can be a great way to, well, double up our own hand size or actually maybe even mill a player out. Next up, Zenith Chronicler. This is a great repeatable way to draw for many players out there. A 3/1 Phyrexian Construct for 2. Whenever a player casts their first multicolored spell each turn, each other player draws a card. We don't have any multicolored players or multicolored spells in our own deck because we are mono blue. Our opponents might though, so we can benefit a lot from this. Then there's Body of Knowledge. This can be a heavy hitter for us. Power and toughness equal number of cards in your hand. Again, that can be an absurd amount. No maximum hand size is huge. On top of that, whenever it's dealt damage, you draw that many cards. So if our opponent decides to block, which they might have to at some point because of how massive this can be, well, we're going to draw a lot of cards. And if they don't, well, we probably have a, X spell draw, at instant speed to just draw an absurd amount of cards to make this huge and hit an opponent for a ton. Finally, a great repeatable draw. One of my favorite cards from my childhood. Arcanus the Omnipotent, tap, draw 3 cards. We can also bounce it back to our hand if I need to protect it, but still a great repeatable way to say, let's draw more. Let's draw more. Thank you. But now that we talked about our own plan, let's talk about slowing down our opponent's plans by throwing a wrench in them with cards like Alchemist Retrieval. Now this one actually is very flexible. Hey, for 1 mana, bounce one of our own things back to our hand to save it, which is great. Or hey, bounce a non-land permanent back to its opponent's hand for 2 mana, so that can be huge. Speaking of which, blink of an eye. Basically, at 2 mana, hey, bounce any non-land permanent. If we kick it, we get to draw a card as well. Again, drawing cards, we can really take advantage of that. Into the Royal, exact same thing. Literally the exact same card, just with different name. So cool. Depart the Realm, a great foretell card. We can foretell it. We can bounce a non-land permanent then for just 1 mana when it's foretold. Filter out, a great board wipe for just 3 mana. Instant speed, 3 mana. Return all non-creature, non-land permanents back to the owner's hands. We can shut things down pretty quickly with this. Again, just 3 mana for a great board wipe. Or at 4 mana, we got Aetherize. If an opponent is being a bit too aggressive, again, hey, we've just been helping you out. We've been helping you draw cards. Why are you attacking me? Well, you do so, and you know what? I'm going to bounce all those creatures back to your hand. Slow things down a lot for you. Comes to bouncing creatures too. Engulf the Shore is huge. It's a massive card. Return to the owner's hands all creatures with toughness less than or equal to the number of islands you control. That probably is going to be all creatures at a certain point. Again, the longer the game goes, the more islands we have in play. This can be huge. At 5 mana, though, we've got Aethergale. 5 mana, bounce 6 non-land permanents. What's not to love about that? This can be a massive way to reset things. And Aether Spouts. Hey, yet again, if you are attacking me, you know what? You shouldn't have done that, because when you do, for each attacking creature, its owner puts on the top or bottom of its owner's library. Yeah, so either you are kind of like fate sealing yourself for the next couple of turns with your creatures, or they are going to the bottom of your library and they are basically gone forever. So a fantastic board wipe for 5 mana. Finally, Commit is a great card. Put target spell or non-land permanent into our library second from the top. So a great way to delay something or even get rid of it if they have to shuffle at some point. And then also, hey, memory, speaking of shuffling, everyone is going to essentially time twist, or everyone puts their hand in graveyard into the library, draws 7. A great way to draw even more cards again with this removal spell. But now let's talk about tactic number 8. And yeah, we're not done with throwing a wrench in our opponent's plans just yet, because we are in blue. So let's counter some things. Negate, a great way to counter a non-creature spell. There we go. Target non-creature spell. We're getting there. Next up, we've got Unwind, 3 mana. So just 1 more. Counter a non-creature spell. Great as well. On top of that, untap into 3 lands. That can be huge. Again, basically just like, hey, you know what? I actually didn't even cast a spell. I didn't even spend mana for this. I get it back. I can utilize that mana again for one of those instant speed spells. And then finally, Mystic Confluence, a very flexible, very incredible spell. 5 mana, choose 3. You can choose the same mode more than once. It's fine. Counter target spell controller pays 3. So typically, you only need 1 of those to actually get rid of that spell, maybe 2. And then also return target creature to its owner's hand. So bounce any creature. That can be a great way to say, you know what? I don't like that creature or that one. All right, I can use those. Or just straight up draw a card. So yeah, if you just need to draw 3 cards with this, you can. So yeah, this is a great flexible spell in this deck. But let's move on to tactic number 9. This is the end, to talk about, well, how we end things. Ominous Seas is an incredible card. A great card that, well, if we don't need it, we can cycle it away. But if we do, get into play. Whenever you draw a card, you get a foreshadow counter on it. By removing 8 of those counters, you get an 8/8 Kraken. So, yeah, that can make you an army quite quickly. Move on. Trisky Decafile. Oh my goodness, this card is so deadly with this kind of a commander. You have no extra hand size. Again, that is huge. We've talked about how that's such a great thing. On top of that, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you can have exactly 13 cards in your hand, you win the game. We got so many ways to draw cards in speed. 13 is nothing for us. We can easily get there. On top of that, pay 4 mana, draw a card as well. Moving on, Chasm Skulker. Hey, whenever you draw cards, this gets counters on it, so this can get absolutely huge in absolutely no time. On top of that, pop. When it gets taken out, you get that many 1/1 unblockable against island players, island walk creatures. Oh, this can be a really, really good card. Next up, Nadir Kraken. In a somewhat similar way, hey, whenever you're drawing a card, you can pay 1. So this does cost mana to do so. That being said, you get a counter on this, and you get a 1/1 blue tentacle creature token. So there you go. You can go wide and tall at the same time. Then there's Sphinx's Tutelage. This is just game over for any other mono-colored deck in many circumstances. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent mills 2. If they're both non-land cards that share a color, repeat this process. And on top of that, you can pay 6 to draw and discard. Regardless, again, you're going to be drawing an absurd amount of cards when you do, making a player mill 2. You can get them down in absolutely no time. And again, if you're playing against a monocolor deck, they're going to be in big trouble. Then there's Psychosis Color. Very simple, very effective. Hey, well, first up, this can be absolutely massive. Power toughness equal to the number of cards in your hand. On top of that, whenever you're drawing a card, every single opponent is drained 1. They all lose 1 life. It's going to take absolutely no time to take all of them out. A fun way to take players out, those attempts is all-seeing. A 4/5 flyer that can help you draw 2 cards and discard a card if you're paying for that. On top of that, though, whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, you reveal your hand. If at least 6 cards with different converted mana costs reveal this way, that player loses the game. Yeah, you can meet that requirement. You can get an absurd amount of cards in your hand. Good luck to your opponents when you've got this in play. But now that we've talked about every single non-land card in this deck, let's quickly go through tactic number 10, great lands, and highlight some great lands. First up, we've got Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Taps for 8 colors, we're going to pay 2 and tap and make every single player loot. Again, having, card advantage, or card selection, I should say, with this one on a land can be huge. I guess it's card advantage, we've got Thought Reflection in play, but a great card itself. And then finally, Miko Koro, Center of the Sea. Again, taps for 8 colors, pay 2 tap, each player draws a card. So again, yet another way to gain card advantage from our lands. They're not really even taking up a spot in the deck at all. That is absolutely massive. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I really like this commander. I do think it is underrated. It is one, again, that I think players just expect group hug, and they're like, oh yeah, you're just going to help me draw cards. Thank you so much. But they don't see kind of the undercurrents of what is going on. They don't see you setting up, drawing an absurd amount of cards, setting yourself up for success, getting a Psychosis Crawler out and being like, okay, yeah, I've got 20 cards in my hand. Wheel, you're all gone. Goodbye. So yeah, there's some crazy things that you can do with this commander. If you are interested in it, make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.